So a moment where I felt like I lived up to my commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion was during my experience with the Fidelity Focus Group. I was offered this opportunity through Director of National Corporate Partnerships, Fatima Hayward, and another stakeholder who was involved in this event was Christina Kuzi, Director of Community Relations at Fidelity. I offered a unique perspective because I was a first generation low income student, and this focus group, ideally what we revolved around was trying to get a financial curriculum and align it through different perspectives. The reason why I appreciated having the opportunity to share my perspective is as a first generation student from a low income family household, credit cards is usually a very scary conversation to have. One thing that I noticed is during the presentation, when they did mention the credit cards, what they did was they spoke about a lot of the logistical things for credit cards, how they work, how they function. But what they didn't do was address the fears, especially the uncommon fears or the fears that are usually not well sufficed. Typically in a low income household, if there's any experience with a credit card, it's usually a pretty damaging one. And one thing that I suggest is just having this open conversation where we start talking about, hey, here's the stigmas that for credit cards, right, when they're not worked functionally well, and here's how they actually work, right? So doing like a comparison. Another thing that I realized is during the focus group, a lot of the financial burdens that people had were things along the lines of cars, maybe groceries. But one thing that I rose was, what happens if your responsibility is helping with rent? What happens if your responsibility is helping for groceries? What happens if your responsibility is making sure you have enough gas to make sure you can pick up your younger sibling from daycare? These were questions I want to address, and I'm happy that we're able to have those conversations. One thing that I learned from this experience that I'm happy to take to the Capitol Hill Fellowship Program is a lot of people come from genuine places. This focus group, the entire intention of this focus group was to provide very, very well-versed feedback. So that way they're able to create these corrections and hopefully implement these changes. But at the same time, these people who had this focus group, when they did not have that information, right? When they augmented the harsh stereotypes of a credit card or some of the untrue stigmas or ideas of credit cards, they weren't intentionally trying to leave out those who needed that kind of information. They were coming from a place of sincerity. And one thing that I learned is, though you may not agree or necessarily align with other people, that doesn't mean that either of you are coming from a foul place of heart. And sometimes what it just creates is having that conversation in a room. So one thing that I hope to take with that experience with me to the Capitol Hill Fellowship Program is just being able to understand that though I may disagree with someone, we are both coming from very genuine and unique places and hopefully aligned to have a conversation.